This is the Mortgage Crisis Update on 630 WMAL. Listen as Compliance Counsel's Dena Roudybush leads you through a fast-paced half hour of expert advice designed to empower you and help you fight foreclosure. Now your hosts, Dena Roudybush and Rick Fowler.
Saturday morning update, 630 WMAL. We're joined from time to time by attorney Dena Roudybush. She's with Compliance Counsel, and she's a specialist in handling foreclosures and trying to reverse some of these foreclosures. She's been standing up for consumers and working on loan modifications and has worked with Delegate Bob Marshall. Recently testified in the Virginia General Assembly, a task force hearing they had down there. Dena, it's always great to have you back with us.
Thank you. Good to be back.
And do want to talk about the testimony and what happened this week. But in general, what we see often is we see a lot of media attention is focused on abuses by whether it's banks or credit card companies, whatever. They focus for a while, then it kind of goes away. The emphasis is lost, and the little guy ends up on the bottom end again. In this case, though, can you bring us up to date and tell us what progress may be happening for consumers?
Actually, yes, there's much more favorable results now for homeowners in both Maryland and Virginia. In Virginia, we have, at least in our firm, we've seen more foreclosure reversals. The banks are much more willing to work with homeowners even after foreclosure sale now. And I would say that's given the recent climate with the exposure of the robo-signing in the industry. There's been a lawsuit, which I've mentioned before in the show, a class action lawsuit filed against one of the largest foreclosing law firms in the area, in the D.C. metro area. So there's much more scrutiny on the banks than there was a year ago. So we see many more foreclosure reversals and even banks now offering loan modifications for homeowners even, right before the foreclosure process, whereas a year ago it was much more difficult to obtain a loan modification when it got into the foreclosure status, and we didn't see any foreclosure reversals a year ago. And now we see much better favorable results for homeowners.
Now, that's progress kind of on the individual consumer front, and that's a lot of result of your work at Compliance Counsel and, of course, other attorneys representing consumers, homeowners. But tell us a little bit about the legislative front. You and Delegate Bob Marshall have been crusading for months and months and months to get some change, and I think the governor has implemented some.
Yes, we have. I've been working with Delegate Marshall since January. I helped draft his House bill, which he sponsored, House Bill 1506. It calls for a number of changes in the foreclosure process in Virginia. For example, extending the 14-day notice of a foreclosure to 45 days. That's just one of the tenets of the bill. Secondly, the big issue, and this is what we talked about, this is the main focus at our hearing at the General Assembly building on Tuesday of this week, was the requirement, the bill calls for the requirement that all mortgage assignments be recorded in land records. And again, as we've mentioned on the show before, MERS, the Mortgage Electronic Registration System, holds about 65% of all mortgage notes in their database. So in other words, notes were not recorded in land records once MERS was established in the early 90s. And so that is the basis for foreclosure defense lawsuits, is that we are demanding the banks to be able to prove that they have the right to foreclose on the home. And we've seen many instances, not just in Virginia, but you see this on a national scale, where the bank was not the secured party. They wrongfully foreclosed. I had a client come into my office last week. The foreclosing law firm is now trying to undo the foreclosure that they initiated 3 years ago. So it's pervasive. It's not just a few isolated cases, and hence the reason for the task force. Terry Suit, the governor's assistant for Commonwealth Preparedness, heads the task force. We had MERS representatives appear. We had banking representatives appear on Tuesday. And, of course, I testified in support of House Bill 1506 that would call for these changes. And so we do have at least now there's a lot of focus on the foreclosure process in Virginia, the issue of foreclosures, that we now have a task force that deals specifically with foreclosure, the problem with foreclosures in Virginia. The next hearing is June 21st, and it is open to the public for consumers who are interested in appearing.
Now, you mentioned consumers could appear there, but if somebody is facing a foreclosure and feels that there are some abnormalities with paperwork or the bank's not treating them right or fairly, they can reach you, of course, at Compliance Counsel, and I know your number is 703-261-7097. But does it also help for them to come down and testify if they feel something egregious has gone on?
Yes, it absolutely does, because there's a huge disconnect between, I believe, between the policymakers and the homeowners. There are incorrect assumptions about homeowners who are facing foreclosures, and there seems to be a presumption that the wrongful foreclosure are just isolated cases, or they're occurring in other states that are judicial foreclosure states. Again, Virginia is a non-judicial foreclosure state. And I've used specific examples, egregious examples that have happened with the clients that have come in our office. We have hundreds and hundreds that have come into our office over the last 2 years alone, and there's a consistent theme with banks not responding to homeowners' requests for modifications, denying modifications when they may be eligible under HAMP, or even granting them modifications and then refusing to enforce the agreement once it's already been executed. So it does help for homeowners for their voices to be heard, and I always want to emphasize if they're homeowner who's facing foreclosure to reach out for help, even if it's just for a consultation to just see if there are options available to them, whether it's litigation or non-litigation.
So you're happy to take those calls. You're at Compliance Counsel, and that number is 703-261-7097. That's 703-261-7097. It's Dena Roudybush. And we've been following this with Dena for 8 months or so now, and actually gotten some nice notes from people that did get a hold of you and appreciated the fact they'd heard you on 630 WMAL. Good luck on the upcoming appearance at the General Assembly. Good work on what you've just done this past week. It's all for the benefit of the consumer and the homeowner, and we appreciate your bringing us up to date on things, Dena.
Thank you. And as I said at the hearing on Tuesday, I am passionate about the clients that we represent. And so anyone listening that wants a consultation, we do offer free consultations for every initial client that just wants to know if there's something that can be done or if there's some options available to them. So, again, thank you very much for having me again.